A thread by Carlos Osuita. Let's talk about this. There's no doubt that President Trump nipped this growing phenomenon in the bud. YouTube video in the description: Christchurch shooting suspect pleads not guilty to all charges. He live streamed the first mass murder, and I downloaded it before the world banned it. At his second mass shooting, an unarmed husband and father left his car to try and stop him. "Don't!" his wife screamed. "I know what to do," he said. "Don't worry, I'll be fine." This man was a member of the Second Mosque. I don't know if he had any military training, but it's almost certain that he did, probably clandestinely. He used natural cover and pelted the gunman with hard objects until the gunman ran away. The gunman has flat effect. This is the only known image of him smiling. It's more a smirk than a smile. As you may know, he also flashed a hand sign that internet trolls deliberately claimed meant white power when in fact it just means okay. It's this symbol. Because so many people were hoodwinked, those people now say that it started out as a troll but became real. You need to understand that full-time trolls are all mentally ill. They live for one-upping each other. I knew we were headed for trouble when they began sending murder scene and accident photos to the parents of the victims. What happened was that the need to one-up each other led to the phenomenon of mass murder as trolling. The defense of trolls is that they're being satirical or ironic. No, it's sadism, pure and simple, the love of inflicting suffering. All the best trollings are the ones that do the most damage. The New Zealand mass shooter is a short, homely, permanent teenager who was 28 years old when he carried out his murders. He's no white supremacist. He's trolling them too. I read his shitposting manifesto. It's fake. The only real thing he said was that he expected to get out about 10 years in prison, after about 10 years in prison, since New Zealand is notoriously soft on murderers. But without warning, he changed his plea to guilty on all counts. His lawyers refused to explain why. No trial. And for the first time in the entire history of New Zealand, from BBC.com, Christchurch killer to stay in jail until he dies. I carefully studied the sentence. It's real. No possibility of parole, ever. Now, he dies in prison. Here's what he looked like when he pleaded guilty. He's defeated. A trial would have meant that his solitary confinement would have continued for another year, and he was going down anyway. We began to have a lot of satirical mass shootings. So I went back and reviewed the 2011 Norwegian mass shooting. I'm now convinced that he was the first satirical mass shooter. His manifesto was bogus. It made no sense and was mostly a copy and paste job of the Unabomber's ravings. And his self-portraits were deliberately ridiculous. Part of the art of trolling is that you troll everybody, including other trolls. They all know this. The Norwegian feels as much contempt for his admirers as he does for his detractors. I had a 10-year association with one of Frank Zappa's second bananas. He was a mind fucker, a troll. Again, pure sadism. Like Zappa, just for the yucks. Zappa invited a young bassist from Florida to California, telling him that the audition was just a formality. The guy sold everything, packed up his bass and amp, and drove across the country in his VW van. At the audition, his amp wouldn't turn on. As he frantically checked it, Zappa said, "What kind of asshole brings a broken amp to an audition?" Then one of Zappa's ass-kissing trolls held up the plug. I unplugged it, just funnin' ya, and the room bellowed with laughter. Then Zappa gave the guy sheet music for his piece, The Black Page, so called because it's black with notes. Most of the notes are far above and far below the staff. They're called ledger lines. The Black Page also uses massively complicated tied notes and rests, dotted notes and rests. Wow. Okay, so in case you're just listening, this is the most impossible sheet music of all time. It's an ugly piece of crap that Zappa wrote about a mental masturbation. It's not reasonable or necessary to expect that a bassist be able to sight read it. Play it for the first time as he reads it for the first time, but that's what Zappa demanded. When the kid said he'd need a few minutes, Zappa said, "Nah, I need a guy who can sight read anything. We're done." He didn't even let the kid play. Almost 35 years later, the guy still cried as he told me about it. That's why I hate Zappa. His buddy, the guy I knew, was no better. So I finally cut him loose and never looked back. I never respond when he periodically reaches out. He had his chance, he blew it. So, how did Trump stop these satirical mass shootings? By infiltrating all the Chan forums, because the shootings stopped. The only answer to everything is massive prison sentences in federal penitentiaries. The current rioting continues because local DAs refuse to charge rioters under any circumstances. That will change after Trump is reelected. Here's the deal. Elect Democrats, you get lawlessness. You can't have Democrats and the rule of law. The feds must step in. I know that people hate that idea, but the only disciplined militias know that they're up against people who can't be stopped unless they're killed. This is the precise moment in Charlottesville where the militia realized they'd have to pull out. It did not work. Look at the man's face. There's a video of this moment somewhere. A guy is saying, "We have to pull out. They want us to kill them." Nobody argued. They knew it was true. Social media makes pathology worse. But for those of us grounded in reality, it also makes it really easy to manipulate the pathological. This is a transitional period. The pathological on both sides are losing. Crime was plummeting before the pandemic. That last hurdle we need to overcome, that's the Democrats, and they're obligingly destroying themselves. This is a sea change. I'm happy to see that most people are on board. Defeatism and fear are corrosive. If we go down, we go down. But if we don't, hang on, because the Trump train will become a rocket and the ride will be wild. Your face will hurt from smiling. All will be well.